Philadelphia. So much talk about the defense, so much attention on the Bengals stars. Bengals training camp keeps pushing on, and the next hour is all Bengals, only on Fox 19 now. And welcome everybody, stadium side here at Paycor Stadium. I am Joe Danneman, he is Jeremy Rao. We are with you until 3 o'clock talking all things Bengals training camp. Reagan Holgate and Gabby Sorrentino will also join us. So too will Charlie Goldsmith and James Rapine. What a cast we have today for this Bengals training camp special here on Fox 19 now. But the day started with some news. The Bengals added a former first-round draft pick to give Joe Burrow another weapon.
I like this window, by the way. A Thursday, 2 o'clock, it's like happy hour. So whatever you're doing, now if you told your boss, give me an hour to just step aside for a lunch break here, we're glad you're with us. And really, Joe, it is an embarrassment of riches now for the Bengals and their offense. Here is video to start the show of Noah Fant, the new tight end for the Bengals, a 2019 first-round pick. Just this last season, 500 yards receiving and 1 touchdown. Now think about what the Bengals lost. And the local guy, Eric All Jr., he's out for the season. He's already missed a lot of time here in Cincinnati, and high expectations around him. But while he's out, they wanted to add something, and this was the equation. Noah Fant came here for a visit, went to other spots around the league, but said, I want to play with Joe Burrow and what could be the best offense in the entire NFL. As for what Noah Fant brings to this team, to this loaded room, here is Zach Taylor today.
Yeah, he gives you even more flexibility, and you got a player that's really a plus player in both the run and the pass. And so, at the point of attack, blocking, backside of blocking, and protection can help you, but also really explosive as a receiver. Great size, great explosiveness, really good hands, tough to bring down. I think that's another weapon. Anytime we can add weapons like that, and Eric All did that for us last year as well, and so, again, we really feel good about where a tight end could be.
So the news of the week is the arrival of Trey Hendrickson. And look at Trey, a man of the people. You get a fist bump, you get a wave, you get a fist bump. But no new contract yet for the Bengals star defensive end. He told us nothing has changed on that front. He wants more years and he wants more guaranteed money. He called it security is what he wants here in Cincinnati. But he is here. And his presence matters. Joe Burrow said as much this week, said Hendrickson's intensity is a difference maker in meetings, even on the practice field working with some of the younger players, especially Jamar Stewart. But the Bengals need Trey Hendrickson in pads. He knows that. You know that. It's now a waiting game to see when that will happen here at Bengals training camp. Okay, let's bring in Charlie Goldsmith. Charlie and I do the Gold Standard every week. We did one on Wednesday, so check that out right now on all the Fox 19 Now's platforms. But let's talk about this live on TV right now. I was just talking about Trey Hendrickson. He told us nothing has changed. Do you think ultimately something gets done that appeases both Trey Hendrickson and the Bengals so he gets back on the practice field?
What you saw with Jamar Stewart was ultimately a compromise that made Jamar happy enough. My question that only Trey could answer is, can the Bengals offer him enough of a compromise that would make him happy enough? Because the Bengals aren't going to go all the way. The Bengals aren't going to give Trey the multi-year guarantees that he's looking for that would pay him at a certain level. But there are other areas where they might be able to work around the margins. But as Trey said, it's just a negotiation that's been tricky. I was impressed kind of by his positive tone that he spoke with.
Okay, let's talk about the defense. And I mentioned what Joe Burrow said about Trey Hendrickson. Joe Burrow also talked at length on Wednesday about the Bengals defense, the energy, the physicality, the aggressiveness, even the talking that we're hearing from some of the Bengals defensive backs. How much of this do you think is a difference maker? Because I think a lot of us would watch this and say, okay, we'll see what the Bengals do week 1 in Cleveland. We'll see what they do in the season opener here at home against Jacksonville in week 2. But is the difference really this much on the defense? All the talking, all the aggression, is that stuff a difference maker?
The defense is looking for something to believe in. And belief is much more powerful than the opposite. And last year, the Bengals were a defense that was stuck in the pit and misery of being of a unit with no belief. So I think you're seeing guys make a conscious effort to be a part of a culture change. Now, can these guys keep covering at the level that they have? Can these guys rush the passer when they're facing better interior offensive linemen? I've still got questions at every single spot on the defense, but you do literally have to start somewhere, and that's what they're trying to establish.
News of the day is Noah Fant is now a Cincinnati Bengal, a former first-round pick, a really talented guy that they can add to that tight end room behind Mike Gesicki. We see Eric All walking around here still with a knee brace on. Is he kind of an Eric All replacement, and that he can do a little bit of both blocking and receiving?
I see him more as a Hayden Hurst replacement. Okay. You might remember Hayden from 2022. What Hayden really did so well was catching the ball underneath, getting upfield, breaking through tackles, pounding his chest, and moving the chains. And Mike Gesicki has been fantastic, but that's not Gesicki's game. That's not any of their backup wide receivers' game. They were looking for a yards after catch guy. He can be Noah Fant 6th, 7th on the pecking order, but still gives you something different. He makes the offense more well-rounded. While he doesn't block, he impacts the passing game.
Okay, one quick thought here on the offense, because the defense has dominated so much of the conversation, and we understand why. Has anything stood out to you on the offensive side of the football, whether it's Joe, whether it's Jamar, or maybe even a story that we haven't uncovered so far? Is there anything on offense that's really caught your eye 1 week into training camp?
We have plenty of time to talk about the stars. We've talked about Jermaine Burton. I'd like to give Jake Browning his flowers, because the Bengals quarterback is having by far the best training camp that he has had with this team. I think Jake Browning right now just looks like a starter. And we can talk about, the plays Burton's made, the plays Charlie Jones and Isaiah Williams have made as they fight for practice spots. Great job by them, but I've been impressed with Browning's throws. He's setting those guys up, so he's continuing again to look like another starter in the building.
So I have a surprise for Charlie as we finish out this segment. We're going to pop this picture up on the screen, and when the picture pops up on the screen, Charlie, I'm going to show it to you. If people wonder what it's like to cover both the Bengals and the Reds at training camp and also the Major League Baseball trade deadline, can you tell us what's happening in this picture?
So the story there starts about a few hours earlier when Geno Stone during an interview was cramping, and he asked me, do you ever cramp even though you don't do anything? And I said, sadly, yes. And during that photo taken by our mutual friend, I got a cramp. I tried to stretch while I kind of rode out where the Reds were heading. So it happens. It's that time of year.
You can read all of Charlie's work right now on Charlie's chalkboard. He's got the Bengals covered. He's got the Reds at the trade deadline covered. There's been a lot of news, and he called it this week on the Gold Standard about the Reds going defense, about the Reds going for pitching. Check that out everywhere you follow Charlie right here on Fox 19 now. Time for a quick break. When we come back on our Bengals training camp special, I'm going to steal a line from Gabby's piece. Chase Brown is the undisputed RB1 in Cincinnati. But what about the depth? There are new guys here in Cincinnati. What does Chase Brown think about Samaje Perine and Taj Brooks? We'll talk about that as we continue here on the Bengals flagship station.
everybody knows I'm going to throw to number 1 and number 5. But there's a lot of teams that do a really good job of, taking those 2 guys away. And when you have a guy like Andre, you have a guy like Mike, Maine, Chuck, both really stepping up this camp. We're as deep as we've been at the receiver position since I've been here.
Welcome back here live on our Bengals training camp special. It's the all-orange squad now, Jeremy Rao and Gabby Sorrentino. And you just heard Joe talking about, we mentioned it already, the embarrassment of riches at receiver. He said might be his best he's ever had. You add Noah Fant to that equation. Yep. And Chase Brown really is in that equation. Now, last year, 10 yards shy of 1,000 yards rushing, but certainly he's a weapon for this team at receiver as well, and it's time to put it on a feature with him.
Yeah, I feel like we've been seeing a lot of that in training camp too, where he goes out in the flat and he scores a touchdown.
Yeah.
Joe Burrow throwing to him a lot more. But I was really interested in hearing from Chase Brown because we saw a big jump from him from year 1 to year 2. So what is Chase Brown going to do in year 3? Here's my conversation with Chase. A new season brings new opportunities. A big opportunity for Chase Brown to become one of the top running backs in the NFL.
Okay. Thank you. I got you, brother.
The undisputed RB1 in Cincinnati last season, Chase Brown had a big year, but he's looking to separate himself this season, and that starts in training camp.
It's just about making those plays, protecting the ball. I feel like there's a lot of plays where, we could have finished in the end zone, but it was either punched through or whatever. But overall, really confident. I'm excited to see what we're going to do this year.
Brown used the word we, and he isn't talking about the team as a whole. He's referencing a revamped running back room with some old and some new faces.
It's going to take all of us, so I'm excited to see Taj continue to grow and learn from Samaje. I mean, this is year 9 or 10 for him, so definitely excited. We all bring something different to the table, so it's gonna be a great year.
Being a running back is all about being fast. The Bengals are hoping they can be like a running back and charge into week 1 of the season.
I mean, we're starting fast every day. We're starting practices in the morning now. Usually we did it in the afternoon, so we start every day with some sort of competition drill and just little things that emphasize starting fast and just getting your mind right early in the game, early in the season, to go out there and execute and win those early games, so we're not leaving it up to other teams at the end of the season.
All right, Jeremy, let's cut to the chase here. You're seeing Chase Brown's 2024 numbers on your screen right now. He was kind of right there in the middle of the pack of running backs in the NFL numbers-wise last season. The RB1 in Cincinnati last year and this year, and he made a big jump from year 1 to year 2. Brown eyeing an even bigger season this year. Maybe the chance to be a top back in the league. We've seen in training camp and using him a lot as that short check down kind of receiver role like he did a lot of last year. Kind of interested to see if he keeps that going this season, Jeremy.
I like that. You said brown eyeing. I mean, that's beautiful, right? The brown-eyed song. Okay, so let's talk about Chase Brown a little more here now. We did a hot take segment recently on Cincinnati Sports Show, and I just want to tell you that I feel like Chase Brown being a top 10 back in the league is attainable for him. The hot take would be, and the question mark really, Gabby, could he get to top 5?
Yeah, that was my hot take. I said that I think that he can be that top 5 guy, but as he mentioned when we were talking, there's a lot more guys to share the ball with this year with Samaje Perine, Taj Brooks, some of the newer guys coming in. It's not just going to be him getting every single handoff this season like we saw last year.
Yeah, I think he's poised to take that step. I mean, the big picture on Chase Brown is a 5th-round pick that came in here and some wondered, could he be the replacement for Joe Mixon? Well, in fact, the writing was on the wall. He has been that, Gabby, and now he's becoming a star in the NFL. And Dan Pitcher will say it.
Yep.
They think he can be one of the biggest and best and brightest star backs in the entire league. All right, long way to go here in our Bengals Live training camp special. I want to show you some video of a fun moment in the first week of camp. Karate Kid 3 with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins having some fun in between drills. Look, these guys are superstars. They're still kids at heart. In fact, we have the best play of camp on the way featuring one of those two, and also this. Joe Burrow praising the defense right here live on the flagship. Stay with us. We are back, and the headline of this highlight is Uno of Uno. You need me to translate for you. Yeah, Jamar Chase, number one, is one of one, and that one-handed catch blasted up to the national level this past week. Jamar Chase making highlights at Bengals training camp. Of course, he is the reigning Triple Crown winner. It's not surprising, but still, he makes it look so casual, so easy, and how much fun is it for all of us to have Jamar Chase right here in Cincinnati. Welcome back live here outside of Paycor Stadium. Jeremy Rao and Joe Danneman. So now we get into the defense. And look, I've said it a lot of times. I think you might feel the same way. Even Joe Burrow kind of said this. Let's wait until the regular season and see how it looks. But we can talk about it, right? 1 week into camp, the defense is in some ways annoying the offense and I think making themselves known and heard of it, Joe.
I think it's fair to lean on the side that you're leaning on, that we won't judge this defense until we see real games, right? Because, yes, the Bengals do have a new defensive coordinator. Yes, the Bengals spent 5 of the first 6 draft picks this season on defensive players. And, yes, TJ Slayton, who I think might be one of the more underrated free agents, not here in Cincinnati, but across the entire AFC. Those people are all going to be difference makers for this team. But I think it's also unfair to say that we aren't noticing changes and differences here at training camp. The energy's different. The confidence is different. I've had conversations with Jordan Battle and Cam Taylor-Britt, and each time they've told us that it's okay for young players to lead, to be confident, to go out there and talk, like Jordan Battle's been doing to Jamar Chase, like Josh Newton's been doing at his new position as the slot defender. So I think it's important, yes, that we are being fair, saying we have to wait until week 1, but I think it would be unfair to say that we aren't noticing something that does feel different here at Bengals training camp.
And some guys aren't locked in yet. You know, DJ Turner, I guess you could say, didn't have a great start to camp, but he was the star of today inside the bubble. He had a huge crowd around him inside the locker room talking about his day and winning the day. And then I talked to Josh Newton as well, who's had a nice camp so far. And I said, what is your role going to be? He said, I don't care if I'm slot, outside, whatever, I'm ready. So you want that mindset. They just got into pads. Things will change and evolve. But Joe Burrow already noticing that energy, and he talked about it with us this week.
You need that energy from them. That's how defenses build off of that energy. You know, they're not great. Defense isn't necessarily always played with the mind. You know, a lot of times it's energy, emotion, physicality. If you have a defensive lineman or a corner or a safety make a great individual play, then it's not a lot you can do. So when they have that energy, I think that's very positive.
It is positive right now, you know, and just to hear that from Joe, last year after a lot of the games the Bengals score in the 30s and then lose, people are reading Joe Burrow's body language, right? His long pauses about the defense and just saying, you know, I've got to be darn near perfect, all those things. This is a better tone. Is it training camp? Yes, it is. But I want to share something, and a question that I asked Joe Burrow this week was, do you get ticked off when you throw a pick to Josh Newton in the end zone, low red zone drill, 7-on-7? He said, not really. I'm kind of just letting it fly, working on stuff. But he said, I do love, as he just said there, seeing that energy. He wants a defense that has that energy, has that mindset, that physicality, and I think that's the positive so far.
And the question I don't know if we can answer is, when Joe is talking the way he talked about the defense on Wednesday, is he trying to gas the guys up, give them confidence as one of the leaders of this team and one of the voices of the organization, or is he truly seeing a difference in this young group and younger guys feeling, and this is the word I want to use, empowered to go out there and play with their personality, and the personality of this group is going to be different from what it was in years past, and that to me is what's most important about the change from Al Golden. We can talk about scheme, and it'll be different, and we'll see week 1 in Cleveland what that will look like, but certainly the empowerment of him allowing young players to feel the freedom to be themselves, to play like themselves, and to go out there and play with confidence against what is one of the best offenses in the entire NFL. DJ Turner talked about that today. He said, I'll have no tougher challenge on a Sunday, Monday, or Thursday than I have for every day here at Bengals training camp covering Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. In fact, going back to that point, DJ Turner, we both felt like was falling down the depth chart. We thought it was Dax Hill, Cam Taylor-Britt, Josh Newton, 1, 2, 3. DJ Turner has re-entered the chat with his practice today. Guys were yelling, hey, Elite 2-0, yelling things across what they thought was one of the better practices they've had, yelling that across the Bengals locker room. So, listen, there are young guys in new positions, young guys still developing. I think it's important they feel empowered, and they felt that so far here at training camp.
Jordan Battle's in that conversation. Yelling yesterday at camp to Jamar after breaking up a pass, catch that ball to Jamar Chase, and we caught up with Jordan Battle. We're early in so far. How do you feel like the defense is performing 1 week into camp?
Yeah, I feel like we're doing a great job. Obviously, our motto been this year is start fast, and I feel like we've been doing a good job starting fast so far. We see like sometimes, early in the practice, maybe the energy's not there, but then guys rally each other. And then we finish well, so it's good to see guys, coming together, when they see things are off a little bit, and then making sure the energy is still up.
Been a lot of talk about Al Golden, his impact on this defense. How much can growth and maturity also have an impact with this group?
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, we know we have a young group, especially in the DB room. So we know growing up this year, being leaders, making sure everybody know they have a voice. Everybody can talk. Everybody can be a leader, stand up and say something if you have anything on your mind. And God's gonna listen, and we're gonna come back and we're gonna respond. So just letting guys know that they can be comfortable with things they have to say to the team.
A lot of fans were curious, and some media, about the Bengals drafting someone for the safety room, maybe adding a free agent. It never happened. When you hear questions like that from the outside about the safety room, how do you take that? How do you respond to that?
I don't really care what the outsiders have to say about it. I care about the guys in the room. The guys we're gonna work with every day, guys we're gonna see every day. What we're gonna do to silence that noise, silence the critics. I love that. I mean, I've been going to the biggest programs my whole life, from high school all the way up to now, and it's always critics out there, especially when you have an offense like we do. We have even bigger target on our back as a defense. So how we respond is how we come out every day, how we lead, how we play, how we have energy, how we come out and have fun and dominate.
If everything feels bigger at Bengals training camp, what is bigger than the big smile of the biggest Bengal? Amarius Mims is back for year 2 in Cincinnati. Might be able to graduate to one of the Bengals stars this year. I've got a hot take that I think Amarius Mims might be a Pro Bowler this season. We're going to talk offensive line next. It's still one of the question marks here in Cincinnati as our Bengals training camp special rolls on here on the flagship station.
Oh, there's always a buzz. To me, that's why I love football. When I come into a season, every year is going to be our year, and until someone proves me wrong, it's our year. So excited, big year.
Okay, welcome back, field side, stadium side. I'm ready for the regular season
almost
already.
there, Joe.
Yeah, 1 week and 1 day into training camp, and I'm already thinking about games. But the Bengals do play a preseason game 1 week from tonight. We have subbed out Jeremy Rao for Reagan Holgate. We are diving into the trenches in this segment. You've had conversations with Dylan Fairchild. I feel like by this point you two are pretty close, considering you talked to him at the draft.
Yes.
And then you talked to him this week. Listen, he's coming into a big spot. Everybody knows in Cincinnati there are holes this team needed to fill in the offseason. Guard was one of those holes, and the Bengals addressed it with Dylan Fairchild.
So many expectations for him coming in here, knowing that he could have a starting job on this offensive line, and it's something that the Bengals do desperately need. So how does he temper those expectations and, of course, the pressures of weighing on him during training camp here? Here's part of our conversation.
Trying to get better every single day, and make today better than yesterday, and so on and so forth. That's really the name of the game.
You knew that you were going to come in here and have a chance at a starting job. How do you assess your own personal play through these first few practices?
Yeah, you just got to be honest with yourself, you just got to call it what it is, I need to get better personally, that's something that I know I need to continue to work at and just get better with all the things, just refining my technique, refining my skill set. And that's really just you just look at it for what it is, you know, and that's what we do. It's part of the beauty of being an offensive lineman. You get exposed.
To be able to learn from veterans like Ted Karras and Orlando, what is the biggest piece of advice they've given you?
Yeah, just be you, you know. I think that's like the number one thing is just be yourself. Don't try to be something you're not or anybody that you're not, you know. Just continue to be you every single day, and just focus on the things that are in front of you, you know. I mean, don't get too big, too small. Just focus on what's here right now.
I know you're putting a big emphasis on living and dying on the hill of protecting number 9, Joe Burrow. How much of it is in the back of your mind when you're taking these reps here in training camp?
Yeah, I think that's on the front of my mind, you know. I mean, that's really that's why I'm here, you know. I'm here for that and to make holes for these guys to run through and just be the best offensive lineman I can be, you know, and provide this team tons of value, you know, so we have our best shot to winning a Super Bowl.
So he says that's one of the things that comes with being an offensive lineman is getting exposed. Feel like this has been something we have talked about with the Bengals line up front, and also helps kind of gear our conversation toward Amarius Mims as well. And you have a hot take on him, Joe.
Well, I do have a hot take on Amarius Mims. I think Amarius Mims has a chance this year, because I think Amarius Mims has the highest ceiling of anybody in the offense that hasn't reached towards it yet. Because you think about Joe Burrow, right? You think about Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. How much better can each of those guys get when Burrow is already an MVP candidate? Jamar Chase just won the Triple Crown. T. Higgins scored 10 touchdowns last year. It feels like Amarius Mims, unlike them, is still scratching the surface of what he can be. His first year here in Cincinnati, he started the majority of the games and was just going on raw talent and not necessarily the kind of technique that you get the more time you're in the NFL. So the hot take is I think Amarius Mims can be a Pro Bowler as soon as this year. Now, we saw him a little banged up at camp. He's got a bit of a hand thing going on. He left practice yesterday, and we've seen a revolving door the last 2 days of the Bengals trying to find somebody at right tackle in case he goes down. It's not just right tackle, it's also another guard position that the Bengals are trying to figure out. Is that going to be Cody Ford? Is that going to be Lucas Patrick, who they got in free agency? That, to me, is going to be something I'm going to be watching when the preseason games get here. Who's the other guard opposite of Dylan Fairchild?
That's going to be and still is one of the biggest question marks with this Bengals team right now, is surrounding this offensive line. It'll be interesting to see how things go moving forward, especially with Amarius Mims. And I just said, look, they are clearly lacking depth at these positions, so they are going to need him to be present, and they aren't concerned about this little hand injury that he has going. But once you get into the regular season, you want to see him out there.
And the final thought is this. Look, we all pointed to the defense as the defense had to get fixed in the offseason, and they were never going to fix every problem on defense in one offseason. But we can't forget the offensive line needed help. The Bengals added one draft pick to that. The question is that other guard position, and even with the rookie at Dylan Fairchild's position, that's not a sure thing that's going to be successful this year. I still think there's a microscope on the Bengals offensive line protecting Joe Burrow so this offense can be everything it wants to be. Time for a quick timeout. And here comes Joe Burrow. And no one makes more noise than Cincinnati Bengals fans than when Joe Burrow walks the walkway from the stadium over to the practice fields here in Cincinnati. James Rapine joins the show next. How much should Joe play in the preseason? Let's talk about that next as we continue on the Bengals flagship station.
Does this offense have the chance to be the best in the National Football League?
Yeah, we think so. You know, we were the best, like one of the best, if not the best last year, and we have all our parts coming back. Our coaches are all on the same page that we have an explosive team, and they want us to be explosive and, you know, push the ball down the field or, you know, take whatever we can get. So it's going to be fun.
Welcome back right now with James Rapien of BengalsTalk.com, the king of Bengals YouTube. And we just heard from Andrei Iosivas. I want to talk about Andrei right now. He's one of those guys who, if you've watched the first week of camp or so, you cannot miss what he's done so far, James. What have you noticed watching Andrei?
Well, he came out a couple of years ago, and he was one of these guys coming into the NFL that was the super athletic guy that needed to be molded. And that's what he's done. He's developed. He's molded into a really high-end wide receiver, someone that could be a wide receiver, too, on teams in the NFL. In this offense, with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and Mike Gesicki, sometimes he'll be the fourth or fifth option in the passing game, but he's certainly evolved and developed, and I think you're seeing that as a route runner. He's utilizing his athleticism to a much greater level than he has in years past. And so whether it's knowing where to go, how to get there, the athleticism, he checks every box. I think he's going to matter and have some big games for this team.
So Noah Fant is the news of the day, and we just talked with Mike Gesicki about this, and Mike basically joked and said, well, how do you defend us now? Put all 11 guys on Jamar Chase, and the rest will work itself out. There's obviously excitement around a guy like Noah Fant. I wonder if there's surprise in the room about how you mix him in, how you utilize his talent. How does this equate for you?
I think he can do some of the things that we saw Eric All Jr. do last year. And you saw the offense, how unique it was in the middle part of last season with Eric All and the dynamic he brought. And Noah Fant isn't going to be the same blocker, but he can do some of those things, and he gives them a new dynamic. And the beauty of what he does is he's a dynamic pass catcher. He can do what Mike Gesicki does, and he's good after the catch as well. So you're talking about a former first-round pick, someone that looked at Cincinnati. He definitely had offers elsewhere, and he said, I want to play with Joe Burrow. I want to play with Jamar Chase and play in this offense. So he may not put up huge numbers, but I do think he's going to matter this season and play a big role at times, especially if there are any injuries.
Preseason opener in 1 week, right here on Fox 19 now, by the way, Bengals and Philadelphia, and maybe some room for a spicy take here. I don't know. I think people are wondering, what does it look like, Joe Burrow and some of the starters playing more in the preseason? For Joe Burrow, how much do you think he should play?
Joe isn't going to like this, but 10 snaps, something like that, but one drive I'm fine with. I don't need to see a full half of Joe Burrow, and I know he wants the snaps, but it's a delicate balance. So hopefully they're thinking a number of snaps, 10 snaps. He goes out there, 10 plays, goes downfield, scores a touchdown, and you get him out. I still don't think the risk is worth the reward, but I do think he needs to play some, so that 10 to 12 snaps is probably where I'd be at.
Okay, and beyond that, you think he plays in the second game as well?
I do, yeah. I think he'll play in the first 2 games, and that's part of it too.
Sure.
Why play him more than you need to in that first preseason game, knowing that you're going to put him out there in preseason game number 2?
Okay, last question. You watched camp today inside the bubble for the Bengals. What are you noticing about the offense, good, bad, and different right now?
Well, I think the thing, the fly in the ointment, so to speak, when you look at this offense, now they had Noah Fant, you have Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and Andrei Iosivas. It's the offensive line, and it's at guard. In the guard position, they could use another guy. They could use a proven guy. Even if they believe in Dylan Fairchild, that right side, it's Lucas Patrick, it's Cody Ford, it's a question mark.
Yeah.
So will they add? Everyone's focused on Trey, and will they get something done there? Will the Bengals feel the need to add a guard and bolster their depth? I think that's a big question.
He is James Rapien, king of Bengals YouTube and lead singer of the Plain White Tees. James, thank you.
Yep, in my white tee.
James is such a good sport. Love doing that segment with him. He wanted a polo and he had the white tee, but man, still look good on TV. All right, we got to talk about Trey Hendrickson. He's obviously a major part of the story right now as he just showed up for training camp. Joe D right now is working on a take. He's been thinking about one, crafting one. I have my standard line on Trey and what's going to happen next. It's a big part of our conversation live from Paycor Stadium.
Well, I mean, Cam Jordan was so valuable to me when I was, maturing in the NFL, and I feel like he's in that state. So if I can help him in any way, that's my goal for being here. And like I said, the plan was be here day one. Things transpired. News happened to me, and we just kind of make decisions as we go.
Okay, so the holdout is over, and the hold-in is now in day 2 here in Cincinnati with Trey Hendrickson. And by the way, these computers aren't here just for decor. We actually have the show up in here, and Jeremy has in the rundown, let's have the Trey talk.
Not the TED talk, the Trey talk.
So the Trey Hendrickson talk is this. He's back here in Cincinnati. He's no longer being fined $50,000 for missing training camp practices, but he's not practicing. He's at meetings. His presence is felt, but the Bengals need him on the field. Everybody knows that. So what is your thought here about Trey Hendrickson and how this might play out the next month?
Well, there is value in Trey being here. Number one, that value is not losing $50,000 a day for Trey Hendrickson's family. The other part of that value is, as he talked about, being around a lot of the young guys who could use the teaching, right? We saw Shamar Stewart and Trey yesterday, even today as well, kind of working in tandem. Trey walking him through things. That's important. Trey just being around Jerry Montgomery, the defensive line coach for the Bengals, and just having thoughts and input. And look, Trey was working out in Cincinnati. He's trying to get his body ready. You could view this a lot like you did Jamar Chase last year. Now, Jamar didn't get paid last year. I understand that. But typically the way these things go, when both sides do agree a new deal needs to be in place, I think this gets worked out. It might be in that 2-week window, Joe, before the season opener, week 1 in Cleveland. I think that's when it's most likely to happen. Sure, it is the distraction, but the way that Trey talks, even though they haven't really moved along with the contract talks, the way that he spoke with us, Joe, I feel like Trey believes that somehow, some way, they'll find common ground.
The comparison to Jamar Chase is where my take lies, okay? Yeah. I think it's different than Jamar Chase. Before I talk about that, I will say this. We both agree that we believe Trey Hendrickson will be in uniform playing for the Bengals week 1 against the Cleveland Browns.
Yes, and Joe Burrow said the same, by the way.
Yeah, I think everybody's in agreement with that. How they get there, I think, is going to be played out here the next month. I think it's important that Trey said back in the spring that he would not play under the current deal, that both he and the Bengals have that common goal to get him something new before week 1. Now my take. Why this is different than Jamar Chase? Because I think Trey can be ready day 1 when he walks out onto the field. Not saying Jamar Chase didn't keep himself in shape, right? But there's a timing that comes with it. He doesn't control everything that he does on the field. That's a symbiotic relationship between quarterback and wide receiver that Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow has. Trey Hendrickson, you just say, be ready, be in shape, go get the quarterback. And the way Trey Hendrickson trains and keeps his body ready, I think as long as he's here and signed in practice 1 week before the season opener, he can be a difference maker in Cleveland.
And you hope there's not a domino effect. We all recall last year, Jamar Chase, it was weird. He didn't practice, and then T. Higgins pops up with that injury on the Friday before the opener. So, this whole thing looks and feels different than that, and I do think there's positivity in getting it done. In the meantime, other guys like Joseph Osai, they get to blossom a bit, see their role grow, and obviously belief is growing in that as well for a guy like Joseph. Reagan Holgate caught up with the defensive end.
We've been clanging and banging from day one, so didn't really change anything from the guys up front. From the back end, boys were flying around, bodies were on the ground, and we're excited to see that. It's a lot of things we need to clean up for sure, and long training camp will work on that, but it's good to be back. It's one of the reasons I came back was wanting to play with this group of guys, so it's been good to see him fly around on the defense, and it feels good. Feels like a special year is coming, but we won't try to predict too much.
It feels like there is a different intensity around this defense, knowing that there is maybe something to prove after last season. Have you felt that kind of shift now with Al Golden at the helm?
Nothing to prove, just bad intentions. We know what we want to do. We want to come into every stadium and impose our will. So I wouldn't say anything to prove. I would say just being bad guys, flying around, hitting, flying around, causing mayhem, and then you feel that from Al when he presents, when he installs when he goes over stuff, you feel his energy, and it just trickles down.
We've talked to a lot of guys on the defense, and they've really emphasized the fact that Al has given you ownership of this defense. How much of a difference do you think that's going to make come week 1?
I can predict it's going to make a huge difference, but we won't know until we get there how much of a difference it's going to make. But I think it's going to be something special because, again, it's giving us responsibility. It's giving us a chance to really own something. When you own something, you have pride in that thing. You know what I mean? So when you make a mistake, there's nobody to point at but yourself. You know, when you do good things, there's nobody to look at but yourself. You've worked on that. So you take pride in that. So I think that's going to be the key difference. I think a lot of guys are going to take pride in their craft. They're going to take pride in the way they fit and in the way they play things and make certain things look. And it's going to be special, I think. We'll see.
1 week and 1 day of Bengals training camp is now in the books, and we have one segment left in this show. The one question I want to ask Mike Gesicki about his second year in Cincinnati. We will play that next on the Bengals flagship station.
Welcome back. One final segment, the home stretch of our Bengals Live training camp special. And you see Bengals players running and stretching. It feels like Groundhog's Day here at training camp. The players here about 11 hours a day, but certainly part of that is the grind and the stuff they got to do to be great professional athletes trying to get ready for a big season. And hopefully, as Bengals fans would love, a championship season for the first time ever here in Cincinnati. Jeremy Rao, Joe Danman, as we say goodbye here in just a minute. But before we do, again, we mentioned Noah Fant is now here, a new addition to the tight end room, but Mike Gesicki could still have a big year on deck.
If I argued wide receiver number 3 in Cincinnati isn't a wide receiver, would that make sense?
Yeah.
It's a tight end.
Yeah.
He was third on the Bengals in catches and yards last season. Here's our conversation inside the Bengals locker room with Mike Gesicki.
Yeah, I mean, but, it's July right now, and I think that all that kind of stuff settles itself out as the season goes on. And we just got to take this thing one day at a time, and that's really the most important thing.
When you think back to last year, as the year went on, production really started to pick up. Your role started to be more defined. Do you like your role on this team as you come back for year two?
Yeah, that's why I wanted to come back, man. That's why I wanted to be here. I think our coaching staff does a great job, not only just with me, but with all of our playmakers, putting them in good positions to be successful. And then we play with the best quarterback in the world, so it helps us out. It makes our job a lot easier.
Do you think your role could even get bigger this year?
I think the more you can do in this offense, for sure. I think I need to improve on a couple of things in my game, and that's what I'm working on this training camp to help expand that role.
Did you watch the Netflix show?
I haven't finished it, but I watched some of it, yeah.
When you watch it as a teammate and as a guy who might show up in it, do you watch it looking for yourself in moments like that?
No, just kind of watching it just like everybody else as a spectator. It's a cool show. It's been great. I've watched it in years past, and now this year, obviously, playing with Joe and being around him while he's on the show. It's cool. It's a great show, and they do a phenomenal job with it.
Lastly, Mike, do you guys take pride in this being the best passing offense in the NFL?
Yeah, I think it's something that we put a lot of work into, and the front office does a great job putting all the right pieces in place, and the coaching staff does a great job using everybody the correct way. I know that we got a lot of potential, and we have a lot of titles that are put on us of the playmakers that we have. But for me, I just come out here and now I'm ready for our next meeting at 2:25. That's how I go about this.
The Bengals flagship station means we show you preseason football on Fox 19 now starting 1 week from tonight. The Bengals play in Philadelphia. We also have the Colts game. We will do live pregame shows for each of those games right here on Fox 19 now.
If you want to ask me what I'm most looking forward to about that preseason opener, it's not Joe Burrow or Jamar Chase or all that. I want to see what the Eagles roll out with their first team, to see the Bengals defense against possibly Jalen Hurts. I don't know if it's going to happen, but excited to see it.
We're on our way to Bristol. Live coverage from the Speedway Classic tomorrow here on Fox 19 now. Thanks for watching.
From Fox 19 Sports. This has been the Bengals Training Camp Special.